Daniel Martinez, a 30-year-old millionaire, inherited a vast fortune after the tragic death of his parents in an accident, which occurred when he was just 20 years old. Despite having everything money could buy, Daniel felt deeply lonely and empty inside. He lived in a luxurious villa on the outskirts of Munich, surrounded by servants and comfort, but nothing seemed to fill the void in his heart. The life of luxury could not bring him the happiness he so desired. One day, while driving through the city in his sports car, Daniel saw an elderly homeless woman rummaging through a trash can. The woman appeared to be weak and exhausted, and Daniel felt a strong compassion in his chest. Without thinking twice, he stopped the car and approached the lady. "Excuse me, is there anything I can do to help you?" Daniel asked gently. The woman, initially suspicious, hesitated, but something in Daniel's eyes made her feel like she could trust him. "My name is," the lady began with a trembling voice, revealing that she had been living on the streets for months. "Since I was evicted from my apartment, I have nowhere else to turn," said the elderly woman, revealing her story. Daniel felt a deep sadness when he heard about Abigail's difficulties. Without hesitation, he offered her a place in his village. "I have a garage that I don't use. I'd be happy if you could stay there until you find something better," Daniel said, sincerely. Abigail was speechless at Daniel's generosity. With tears in her eyes, she accepted the offer and accompanied him to the village. When they arrived, Daniel showed her the garage, which was larger than any apartment she had ever lived in. The space had a comfortable bed, a small bathroom and a makeshift kitchen. Abigail could hardly believe her luck in finding someone as kind as Daniel. As the days went by, Daniel and Abigail began to get to know each other better. He discovered that she had been a talented artist in her youth, but that she had to abandon her passion due to life circumstances. Abigail, in turn, realized that, behind the facade of a lonely young millionaire, there was a noble and compassionate heart. Gradually, Abigail's presence began to fill the void Daniel felt in his heart. She taught him to value the simple things in life, like the sunset or a hot cup of coffee on a quiet morning. Daniel, in turn, provided Abigail with the security and affection she craved. Despite their growing friendship, Abigail remained secretive about her past, and Daniel felt there was something she wasn't telling him. However, he decided not to pressure her, understanding that she would share her story when she was ready. And so, in the garage of a luxurious villa, an unlikely friendship between a lonely young millionaire and an elderly homeless woman began to blossom. Both found, in each other, the missing piece in their lives. Gertrude moved into Daniel's garage several weeks ago and, little by little, adapted to the new environment and his constant presence. Despite all the comfort Daniel provided, she struggled to keep the garage organized and clean. Gertrude was a proud woman and did not want to be a burden to anyone. Daniel, in turn, was surprised to discover how much he enjoyed Gertrude's company. Even with the age difference between them, they found something in common: their love for art and music. They spent hours talking about their favorite painters and composers, and Daniel was enchanted by Gertrude's vast knowledge. One afternoon, while they were having tea in the villa's garden, Gertrude casually commented that her birthday was approaching. It was at that moment that Daniel realized he didn't know the exact date. This revelation made him reflect on their relationship and the importance of celebrating special moments together. Daniel decided it was time to talk more about Gertrude's past. He knew she didn't like to talk about it, but he felt it was an important opportunity. "Gertrude, I know this topic is sensitive, but I would love to know more about you. What was your life like before we met?" he asked, with a gentle tone. She hesitated, lowering her gaze and sinking into a thoughtful silence. Daniel noticed that she was struggling with her emotions and questioned whether he had made the right choice in bringing up the subject. Finally, Gertrude looked up and, with a trembling voice, began to speak. "My life before I met you was complicated. I had to make difficult decisions and face situations I never imagined I would have to go through. But that is in the past and I prefer not to delve deeper." Daniel nodded with understanding. "I understand if you don't want to talk about it," Gertrude. But I want you to know that whatever you've been through, I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. You are an incredible person and deserve to be happy," said Daniel. Gertrude smiled, holding his hand gratefully. "Thank you, Daniel. You are a good friend and I appreciate everything you have done for me. Maybe one day I'll be ready to share my story, but for now, I'd rather enjoy the present." Daniel returned the smile and gently squeezed her hand. "Take all the time you need, Gertrude. I'll be here to listen whenever you're ready." From that moment on, Daniel decided that he would make Gertrude's birthday something special. He wanted to show her how much she meant in his life and how grateful he was for her presence. He spent days planning a surprise party, decorating the garage with balloons and streamers, as well as preparing his favorite dishes. Daniel even managed to track down some of Gertrude's old friends, inviting them to the celebration. When the birthday finally arrived, he was excited and eager to reveal his surprise. Daniel took Gertrude for a walk around the city, distracting her while the final preparations for the party were made. When they returned to the village, Gertrude was speechless when she saw the surprise Daniel had organized. With tears in her eyes, she hugged him, moved. "No one has ever done anything like that for me," she said. "You are an angel, Daniel." He smiled and returned the hug. "Indeed, you are the angel, Gertrude. You brought light and joy into my life, and I wanted to do something special to show you how much you mean to me." Surrounded by friends and loved ones, they celebrated Gertrude's birthday with laughter, dancing and lots of delicious food. For the first time in a long time, Gertrude felt truly loved and valued. As the party continued, Daniel couldn't stop his thoughts from returning to the secret Gertrude kept about her past. He knew that one day she would open up, but for now, he was happy to see her so radiant and surrounded by affection. Gertrude knew her past was significant enough to keep it a secret. However, Daniel understood that he couldn't pressure her to share. What he didn't know was that he would soon discover the truth about her life in an unexpected way, and this revelation would change their lives forever. It was a quiet morning in the village. Gertrude woke up early, as usual, and started preparing breakfast in the garage. Daniel, exhausted after an intense week of work, decided to sleep a little more. As Gertrude cooked, she sang a familiar tune, with a dreamy expression on her face. Daniel asked what she was thinking, but decided not to interrupt her. After breakfast in the garden, Daniel said goodbye and went to his office to resolve some urgent matters. Gertrude, in turn, decided to use that time to organize some things and reflect on her life. Taking advantage of the tranquility of the morning, she had time to do something that she had been putting off for a long time. Carefully, she took an old, worn suitcase from under the bed and opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a sketchbook and some pencils. It had been years since he last drew, but at that moment, he felt it was time to rekindle his passion. He sat down on the garage floor and began to draw. At first her features were shaky and uncertain, but gradually she regained her confidence. He drew landscapes from his childhood, portraits of people he had known throughout his life and imaginary scenes that appeared in his mind. She was so absorbed in her work that she didn't notice Daniel entering the garage. He stopped, watching her in amazement and admiration. He had never seen Gertrude so involved in something, and was impressed by her ability to capture emotions and feelings on paper. Suddenly Gertrude looked up and met his gaze. The surprise on her face reflected both the joy and vulnerability of revealing herself through art. Daniel's look surprised her. For a moment, Gertrude looked scared, as if she were doing something forbidden. However, when she saw his admiring expression, she relaxed and smiled shyly. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you," said Daniel, approaching. "I've never seen you draw before. You are incredibly talented, Gertrude." She looked down, blushing. "Thank you, Daniel. It's been a long time since I last drew, but I felt like it was time to start again." Daniel sat next to her and examined the drawings carefully. "They are beautiful, Gertrude. Why did you stop drawing?" Gertrude sighed and was silent for a moment. Daniel noticed that she was struggling with her emotions and wondered if she would finally tell the truth about her past. "I had to leave a lot of things behind when my life changed," Gertrude finally said. "Drawing was one of them. But now, living here with you, I feel like I can be myself again, doing the things I love," said Gertrude, with a smile on her face. Daniel smiled back and held her hand. "I'm very glad to hear that, Gertrude. I want you to know that you will always have my support in everything you want to do." She returned his smile and gently squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Daniel. You are a good friend." They spent the rest of the afternoon talking about art and sharing stories from their lives. Daniel told Gertrude about his childhood and finding solace in music and painting. Gertrude, in turn, talked about the places she visited and the people she met over the years. Despite the growing trust between them, Gertrude still remained silent about the darker aspects of her past. Daniel felt there was something important she wasn't revealing, but he decided not to pressure her. He knew that when she was ready, Gertrude would share her story with him. However, there was a mystery surrounding his departure from the artistic world, and Daniel was determined to find out more. Meanwhile, he was content to enjoy Gertrude's company and support her in every way possible. The idea of helping her rekindle her passion for art never left her mind. He knew that she had given up on many things in life and wanted to do everything he could to make her feel fulfilled and happy again. In the following days, Daniel dedicated himself to researching Gertrude's past. He used his contacts and resources to search for information about her on the internet and in city archives. What he discovered left him speechless. In her youth, Gertrude had been a renowned painter, with exhibitions in some of the most prestigious galleries. However, there were also mentions of a tragedy that had struck her life, which seemed to have been the turning point that turned her away from art. Daniel knew this revelation could be sensitive, but he felt it was important to understand what had happened so he could support Gertrude in the best way possible. He decided that, rather than confronting her directly, he would look for subtle ways to encourage her to talk, creating a safe environment where she felt comfortable sharing her story when she was ready. Daniel began to speak, looking into her eyes. "I did some research and discovered that you were a very talented artist, with exhibitions in renowned galleries. What happened? Why did you disappear from the art scene?" Gertrude stopped moving the cup and remained silent, her gaze lost on the horizon. He could see that this was a sensitive issue and that her emotions were running high. She began, her voice shaking a little. "I had big dreams, but life took an unexpected turn. Some things happened that changed everything." Daniel watched her carefully, waiting for her to continue. He wanted her to know he was there to support her, no matter the answer. "Sometimes the pressures and expectations become unbearable," she continued, taking a deep breath. "I walked away from art because I needed to find a new path. It was a painful decision, but I didn't know how to deal with it all at the time." Daniel felt his heart sink. He wanted to understand more, but he knew he couldn't force her to open up. "You don't need to share more than you feel comfortable with," he said gently. "Just know that I'm here for you, and if you ever want to take up painting again, I'll be by your side." Gertrude looked at him, and a shy smile returned to her face. "Thank you, Daniel. This means a lot to me. I really want to get back to drawing and painting. I feel like it's time to reconnect with that part of me." Daniel smiled, relieved that she was starting to open her heart. They continued to talk about art, dreams, and hopes, creating a safe space where Gertrude could, one day, share the full truth about her past. Daniel smiled and gently squeezed her hand, feeling a mixture of relief and understanding. "Of course, Gertrude. The important thing is that you are feeling good now. Let's focus on the present and what you want to do going forward." She took a deep breath, looking a little more relaxed. "I really want to paint again," said Gertrude, passion beginning to shine in her eyes. "I feel like this part of me was dormant, but now it's waking up again." Daniel lit up at the possibility. "How about we start planning a small exhibition? Something intimate, just for us and some friends, to celebrate your return to art. Before I continue, I need to tell you something. Do you want to attract a lot of money into your life? Check out the powerful and secret Tesla ritual that I will leave in the first pinned comment, and start transforming your financial life. Let's continue. Gertrude looked surprised, but with a growing smile. That would be amazing. But, am I ready for this? You'll never know until you try, he replied. And I will be by your side every step of the way. She thought for a moment, the idea beginning to germinate in her mind. The possibility of reconnecting with his art felt exciting and scary at the same time. It's okay, Daniel. Let's do this. I want to try. Daniel smiled widely, feeling like they were about to embark on a new journey together. He knew that no matter what happened, this was the start of something special for Gertrude, and he was honored to be a part of it. Gertrude approved, understanding the offer. Take all the time you need, but I want you to know that I trust your talent and want to help you rediscover your passion for painting, said Daniel. Upon hearing this, Gertrude's eyes filled with tears. Would you really do that for me, Daniel? After everything you've already done? Daniel smiled. Of course I do, Gertrude. You're an amazing person and you deserve the chance to do what you love. Please let me support you. Excited, Gertrude agreed. Okay, Daniel, I accept your help. But I want you to know that it won't be easy. It's been many years since I last painted and I'm not sure I can still do it. Daniel affectionately squeezed her hand. Don't worry about it, Gertrude. Let's move forward together, step by step. And if you feel like you're not ready, I'll understand. The most important thing is that you try. Gertrude smiled and hugged Daniel tightly, feeling a new spirit. Thank you, Daniel. You can't imagine how much it means to me to know that you believe in me. From that moment on, Daniel dedicated himself to helping Gertrude rediscover her passion for painting. He bought materials and canvases, as well as setting up a room in the villa as a studio for her. Gertrude spent hours in this space, painting and drawing like she hadn't done in years. At first, her features were shaky and uncertain, but gradually, she began to regain her confidence. Daniel watched in silence, impressed by her talent and dedication. Although he knew that Gertrude still had a long way to go, he was ready to accompany her every step of the way. One day he commented, "People are very interested in seeing your works and asked me if you would be willing to participate in a local exhibition." Gertrude was speechless. It had been years since she had publicly exhibited her work, and the idea of doing so again filled her with excitement. Gertrude felt a mixture of fear and excitement. "I don't know, Daniel," he said, his voice shaking. "It's been so long since I last exhibited. What if they don't like my work? What if I'm not good enough?" Daniel approached and hugged her affectionately. "Gertrude, you are an incredible artist. Your work is beautiful and moving. I'm sure people will love it. And if they don't, what difference does it make? The most important thing is that you are happy and satisfied with what you do." Gertrude smiled, wiping away her tears. "You're right, Daniel. I hid my talent for so long and it's time to shine again. I'm going to participate in the exhibition." Daniel smiled excitedly. "Excellent. I'm sure it will be a success. And don't worry about anything, I'll take care of every detail. Just focus on creating your masterpieces." In the following weeks, Gertrude dedicated herself entirely to preparing her works for the exhibition. Gertrude spent hours in the studio, painting and perfecting every detail. Daniel supported her in every way possible, bringing food and drinks when she forgot to eat and encouraging her when she felt unmotivated. Finally, the day of the exhibition arrived. Gertrude was nervous, but also excited. He knew he would face his fears, but he had Daniel's unconditional support by his side. When they arrived at the gallery, Gertrude was breathless when she saw the crowd that had come. Art critics, collectors and art lovers in general strolled through the halls, admiring the works on display. She shyly approached her session, where her paintings hung on the wall. To his surprise, a large group of people gathered around his works, engaging in lively comments and discussions. "They're incredible," he heard a woman say, and a smile began to appear on his face. "Look at how she captures light and movement, it's simply stunning," said a man. "The emotion she conveys through the colors and shapes is incredible. It's as if you can feel what the artist felt when she painted." Gertrude felt her eyes fill with tears. "After so many years of doubt and fear, I was finally getting the recognition I deserved." Daniel walked over and hugged her proudly. "You did it, Gertrude. You're shining like the star you are." Gertrude smiled and returned the hug. "Thank you, Daniel. None of this would have been possible without you." But just when Gertrude thought everything was perfect, a man with a surprised expression approached. "Gertrude, is that you?" he asked. "It's me, Charles. Don't you remember? We were classmates at the Art Academy years ago." Gertrude froze. Charles had been one of her best friends in her youth, but he also witnessed one of the darkest moments of her life. "I didn't expect to see you here, Charles," said Gertrude, her voice trembling. Charles smiled. "I know, it's been a long time. But when I saw your name on the artist list, I had to see you. We have a lot to talk about." Gertrude looked at Daniel, worried. He knew that Charles held information about his past that could threaten everything he had achieved so far. What secrets did he keep? And how could they affect the new life she was building with Daniel? The exhibition was a resounding success, and Gertrude couldn't be happier. His works received praise from critics and collectors, and many of them were sold at high prices. However, despite the joy she felt, Gertrude couldn't stop thinking about her meeting with Charles. "I knew he had information that could put not only his career at risk, but also the new stability he had found." Daniel, noticing Gertrude's concern, decided to invite Charles to dinner at the villa, so they could talk in a more peaceful environment. Gertrude was nervous, but she knew she needed to face her past once and for all. During dinner, Charles shared about his life after Art Academy. He had worked as an art critic for several magazines and newspapers and closely followed Gertrude's career before her disappearance. "I always knew you had a special talent," he said, admiringly. "Your works were unique and moving. I was sure you would go far in the art world." Gertrude smiled sadly. "Thank you, Charles. But as you know, things didn't turn out as I expected." Charles nodded, understanding. "I know that. I always wondered what happened to you when you disappeared. Many thought you had a nervous breakdown or—" The conversation became heavy. Gertrude knew she would need to face these ghosts. "It wasn't a nervous breakdown, Charles. It was something different," Gertrude said, lowering her gaze. Daniel affectionately held her hand. "Gertrude, if you don't want to talk about this, we'll understand. You don't have to tell us anything you don't want to." But Gertrude shook her head. "No, Daniel. It's time for me to finally face my past, and I want you to know everything." She began to tell the truth about her disappearance more than 20 years ago. "I became involved with a man called Michael, an art collector who won me over with his charm and knowledge of the art world. But what I didn't know was that he was involved in shady dealings and used our relationship to sell works of art fakes to unsuspecting collectors." When Gertrude discovered the truth, she confronted Michael and threatened to report him to the authorities. But Michael wasn't willing to lose his business and decided to take drastic measures. Gertrude continued, her voice shaking. "One night, while I was sleeping, Michael broke into my apartment and brutally attacked me. I managed to escape, but I was traumatized and too scared to return to the art world. Since then, I have lived in hiding, fearing that he would find me and end that had begun." Daniel and Charles listened to Gertrude's story with horror and compassion, unable to believe that anyone could harm someone as sweet and talented as her. "I'm sorry, Gertrude," said Charles, with tears in his eyes. "I had no idea what you went through, but I want you to know that I'm here to support you in whatever you need." Daniel agreed. Me too. No one will hurt you ever again. I will protect you with my life if necessary. Gertrude smiled gratefully. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Charles. You have no idea how much it means to me to have your support at this time. But just when they thought the worst was over, Charles hesitated. Gertrude, there's something else I need to tell you. Gertrude, there's one more thing you need to know, Charles said, making everyone freeze. Michael is in town and I believe he is looking for you. Gertrude felt her blood run cold. After all these years, his worst nightmare was about to come true. What would Michael do if he found her? How could she face him after everything that had happened? The news left Gertrude in a state of shock. It seemed like he had finally caught up with his past. Daniel, seeing the fear in Gertrude's eyes, decided to take control of the situation. He hired a security team to watch the villa 24 hours a day and made sure Abigail was never alone. But despite the security measures, Gertrude couldn't shake the feeling that Michael was approaching. She started having nightmares about him chasing her, and each morning she woke up more scared than the last. The tension was increasing, and Gertrude knew she needed to face her fears, but how? Gertrude would wake up in the middle of the night, screaming, immersed in nightmares that took her down dark alleys. Daniel did everything he could to comfort her and give her a sense of security, but he knew the only way to put an end to Gertrude's fear was to confront Michael once and for all. One day, while Gertrude was working in the studio, Daniel received a call from Charles. He had discovered that Michael was planning to attend an art auction in the city, where one of the fake works he had created years ago was supposedly being sold. Daniel knew immediately what he had to do. He decided to take Gertrude and Charles to the auction and confront Michael in front of everyone present. When they arrived at the auction, Gertrude was shaking with fear. I knew Michael would be there and I couldn't imagine how he would react after all these years. But Daniel and Charles were by her side, giving her the strength she needed to move forward. We are with you, Gertrude, said Daniel, holding her hand. No matter what happens, you're not alone. With her heart racing, Gertrude took a deep breath and prepared to face her past. Together, they entered the hall where the auction was taking place and waited for Michael to appear. Finally, after several tense minutes, he entered the hall. He was as elegant and charismatic as ever, looking like he hadn't aged a day. But when his eyes met Gertrude's, his expression changed completely. His eyes filled with anger and contempt as he approached with purposeful steps. Well, well. Look who decided to show up after all these years, Michael said mockingly. The great artist Gertrude, who disappeared without a trace. What brings you here, dear? Have you come to beg for my forgiveness? Gertrude felt her stomach turn, but she held her ground. No, Michael. I came to confront you and make you pay for all the harm you did to me. And not just to me, but to all the people you deceived with your false works. Michael laughed loudly. What are you talking about, Gertrude? I did you a favor by. His voice was full of disdain, but Gertrude was not going to back down. She took a deep breath and prepared herself for the battle she knew was just beginning. Michael continued talking. To take you out of the art world, you were too naive and weak to survive in that environment, you should thank me. Daniel couldn't contain his indignation and, taking a step forward, faced Michael firmly. Listen well, Michael. Abigail is a strong and courageous woman, more so than you know. She faced challenges you can't even comprehend and managed to overcome it all. Never underestimate her again. Michael, with a disdainful look, replied, and who are you? Her new boyfriend. This is hilarious. Abigail has always been a loser, and she will remain so no matter how many men defend her. Charles, who until then had remained silent, decided to intervene. You are mistaken, Michael. Abigail is a talented artist and an incredible person. Today, in front of everyone, we will expose your lies and deceptions. With that, he took out a folder full of documents and photos, starting to show them to the public. They were evidence of the false works Michael had created. Michael had sold works over the years, using fraudulent methods to deceive collectors and museums. Upon seeing the evidence, his face turned pale, but he tried to remain calm. "That's a lie. I never faked anything. This evidence is false." However, the people present did not believe him. One by one, they began to accuse him of fraud and demand the return of the money that had been stolen. Feeling trapped, Michael tried to escape, but security guards stopped him. A few minutes later, the police arrived and arrested him. Handcuffed, Abigail felt immense relief when she saw Michael being taken away. "After so many years of fear and torment, I could finally breathe freely." Daniel hugged her tightly and whispered in her ear, "You did it, Abigail." She faced her worst nightmare and emerged victorious. "I'm so proud of you." Abigail smiled, with tears in her eyes, and replied, "I couldn't have done it without you. You, Daniel, gave me the strength I needed to face my past. Thank you for believing in me." Charles came over and hugged her. "I'm happy to have been a part of it. I always knew you were a special person, and today you proved it once again." Abigail smiled and wrapped her friends in a big hug. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with the support of Daniel and Charles, she felt she could face any challenge. With a heart full of hope and love, Abigail took the first step into a new life, free from fear and lies. It was a life where she could shine with all her talent and beauty, and where she would never be alone again. After Michael's arrest, Abigail felt a great weight lift from her shoulders. "For the first time in many years, I could breathe freely and think about the future without fear." Daniel and Charles remained by his side, offering unconditional support. Encouraging her to move forward, together they began planning the next step in Abigail's life, finding her family. Abigail had said that, after running away from Michael, she lost contact with her daughter, who she had left in the care of a friend. Over time, ties broke. Now, with the help of Daniel and his contacts, Abigail had the chance to reconcile with her daughter after so many years. The search, however, would not be easy. It had been more than 20 years since Abigail last saw her daughter, and she didn't know where she could be. Daniel didn't give up. He hired a team of private detectives to investigate every possible lead and spent hours going through files and records, searching for any information. After several weeks of intense searching, Daniel received a call that left him breathless. One of the investigators had found a clue to the whereabouts of Abigail's daughter. Abigail's daughter was living in a small town a few hours away. Daniel rushed to break the news to Abigail, who could hardly believe what she was hearing. After so many years of uncertainty and pain, he would finally have the chance to see his daughter again. Together, Daniel and Abigail traveled to the city where their daughter lived. The place was small and quiet, surrounded by mountains and forests. When they arrived at the address they had been given, Abigail felt her heart quicken. How would your daughter react after all these years? Would she forgive her for leaving her behind? Daniel took her hand and shook it confidently. "Everything is going to be okay, Abigail. Your daughter loves you and I'm sure she'll be happy to see you." With her heart pounding, Abigail knocked on the door. The seconds seemed like an eternity until, finally, the door opened. Before her was her daughter. The daughter had grown into a beautiful woman, but Abigail recognized her immediately. Abigail stood still for a moment, looking at the daughter she hadn't seen in so long. The recognition was instantaneous, and emotions took over. With tears in her eyes, she whispered her daughter's name, who looked at her with a mixture of surprise and hesitation. "Mother?" the young woman asked, hesitantly. Abigail took a step forward, her heart racing. "Yes, it's me. I'm sorry about everything. I never stopped thinking about you." The daughter, still in shock, hesitated for a moment, but then her arms opened. Abigail hugged her tightly, feeling that the absence of all those years was being filled at that moment. The two began to cry, sharing a mixture of pain and joy. After the hug, they sat down to talk. Abigail explained everything that happened, and her daughter, over time, began to understand. The dialogue flowed, bringing up old memories and saved feelings. The reconnection was not instantaneous, but the desire to rebuild the relationship was present in both. In the following months, they meet regularly. Together, they began to create new memories, learning to forgive and support each other. Abigail finally felt complete, surrounded by her daughter's love and the support of Daniel and Charles. Abigail's life had changed. She has not only freed herself from the past, but also found a future filled with hope and love. Every day, she felt stronger, knowing that, alongside these people, she could face any challenge. Remember that if you want to attract more money into your life, access the link I left in the first pinned comment. Did you like today's video? So leave your like, subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell. By doing this you will not miss the next story I post here.